LeetCode problem number 57, insert interval. So this problem gives us an array of non-overlapping intervals where the interval I contains the start and end numbers are basically represents the start and end of the ith interval, and the intervals is sorted in ascending order by the start, which is the first number, and we are also given an interval called newInterval, which is the same thing as the start and end. And basically what we have to do is insert this new interval into the existing intervals such that the intervals are still in sorted order, in ascending order, and still does not have any overlapping intervals, right? So basically we have to merge any overlapping intervals if they are necessary. Afterwards, we have to return the intervals. Okay, so this is my approach. So let's say the intervals are these, with the new intervals being 4, 8. Okay, so this is our interval, and this is the new intervals we have here. Alright, so first things first, I construct the result 2D vector, which is the intervals that I'm going to return. And here I keep track of the start of the new intervals, right? The start and the end. So in this case, new start is 4, new end is 8, right? The size would be the interval size, which is 5, and I is 0. Okay, so the size I will leave it up here because it most likely won't change, but the rest down here will change. Of course, we have the result as well, which is going to be empty. Okay, so here, first things first, while I is less than the size, so here I'm checking whether or not the intervals, the current intervals I have, the end of it, whether or not it's smaller than our current starting interval. Because if it is, meaning that this new interval would be located behind these current intervals. Since 2, right, 2 is smaller than new start, which is 4, 2 is smaller than 4. So here we push back the current intervals while incrementing I. So you push back 1 and 2. Next we check for 5. Since 5 is bigger than 4, so we know that this while loop will end, meaning that the start of the new interval belongs into, basically it will overlap this current interval we have. So here I have another while loop. This time I'm checking whether or not the starting interval is smaller or equals than the end of the new intervals, right? So in this case, since 3 is smaller than 8, right? Assuming if 3 were to be bigger than 8, so we know that we can just push this new interval in between this space here, right? But since 3 is smaller than 8, meaning we have to expand the new intervals while removing the overlapping ones. So the way we remove it is not really removing it, but more like omitting it when we are pushing back. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. So since this is true, new start will equals to the minimum of either new start or the current interval we have. And since this 3, which is the existing interval, is smaller, has a smaller starting than the new interval, so the start will actually be the 3. While the end, again, we'll be checking for the end, which is 8, or 5. Since 8 is obviously bigger than 5, so we'll be using 8 instead. So the 8 will stay. We increment I. Now we're looking at 6, 7. Again, the start, which is 6, is still smaller than 8. So we are good to go. So here we check new start again. Is 6 smaller than 3? No, it's not, so we don't need to change much about this. What about the n? Since the n is also smaller than the new interval's n, which is 8. Sorry, I'm pointing the wrong thing. So we don't have to change much there. Increment I. I forgot to increment I all this time. Well, I now is at 8, 10, so 3. So 8, 10. Alright, let's have a look. So 8, 10. 8, the starting, is smaller than equals to the n, which is true, right? It is equals to the new n we have here, which is the new interval's n. So we're still good to go. New start does not change, right? Because 3 is smaller than 8. New n, however, will update, right? Because the new n here, 8, with the existing interval, 10. Since 10 is bigger than 8, so what we have to do is we have to use 10 instead. Once that is done, we increment I. So I now points at the last intervals. So when we check, the start of this interval, 12, is now bigger than the end of our new interval, which is 10. So we can just skip, right? So this while loop will skip. Not necessarily skip, but this while loop will end. We'll finish iterating. And here we're pushing back the new start and new end, which is 3 and 10. So this will look like this. So we have 3 and 10. Now, if you look at I was at 12, 6, right, which was 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And since 4 is less than the size of our intervals, that means we have one remaining intervals left that we will need to insert into the result as well, right? So result will push back the current interval, which is 12 and 16. We increment I from here. After that, I is now 5, the size is also 5, so we are good on that. This value will end and return the result, which is 1, 2, 3, 10, and 12, 16. You can see it's in ascending order and there are no overlapping intervals. Okay, so that's how I solved this problem. That's all I have to show. Thanks.